In this very important tutorial video, we are going to talk about mobile responsiveness. So that is how Shogun elements and styling on elements respond across various screen sizes. So you've probably noticed as you're page building inside of Shogun that you can preview it for these different device views, right? You can check out how things look on desktop, on widescreen, on tablet, and on mobile. And when you're editing your page, you are checking it out in desktop view. So the page is going to end up looking different across different screen sizes when you publish it and when you preview it. And sometimes, if you haven't considered what these styling controls do across various screen sizes, you can be in for a surprise sometimes when you finally publish your page. So let's avoid that surprise by talking about what styling controls do in terms of mobile responsiveness. What I've done here is set up a little example to give with some various elements that have been styled in a way that is conducive to mobile responsiveness and in a way that is not so conducive to mobile responsiveness. So let's check these out. Let's start off with this centered button. Both of these buttons look almost identical in desktop view. Let's see how they were styled. So the first one I styled for mobile responsiveness. And what I did was I decided to use columns to center this button. I put in 3 columns here. I dropped that button into the middle column, and I just put an extra little bit of margins on this button element here, just 20 pixels on the left and right hand side to make it a little bit smaller. Now on this second button, which is not ideal for mobile responsiveness, what I did was I dropped the button on the page and then I put 375 pixels of margin on the left and right hand side of this button. Okay, so let's see what it does across screen sizes. Right now we're in desktop. It looks great. Okay, widescreen. All right, we can already see there's a difference here. Okay, now when we drop down to tablet, oh my gosh, that second button is not looking good at all. By the time we're at mobile, things are just not good one bit. But that first button is looking fantastic. Okay, why is this? This is because we've just set a whole bunch of margin on this button, right? 375 plus 375 pixels. And mobile screen is not that wide across, so it just can't take all of that margin setting. Okay? So I have a very similar example here with text, right? We can take a look in this first text element here. I've just put 25 pixels left and right margins on it. It's looking pretty good. If I wanted to center it a little bit more here, I've dropped it in columns, very similar to the first example. And here, also very similar to the first example, I have put a significant amount of not margins, but instead of padding. I put 200 pixels of padding on the left and right, which in some cases behave very similarly to margins. And let's check and look what it looks like on the smaller screens. It's okay on tablet, but oh my gosh, on mobile, that last view, which was styled with these 200 pixels of padding, it is not looking good. It's looking pencil thin, whereas our other 2 views are looking quite good. Okay. The final example that I will give doesn't have to do with margins and padding, but instead has to do with background images versus images. So here I have 2 very similar looking images. The first one is a box with a background image uploaded, you can see here. And the second one is a image element that I have dropped into a full width box. All right, now let's take a look at what they look like on smaller screens. Here you can see with tablet we're already starting to see a bit of an issue. We're losing a little bit of our image here. By the time we get to mobile, oh man, we've lost a whole bunch of that image. Yet, right here, we use the image element instead of that background image, and it's not been cropped. Now, this won't always matter, right? Sometimes you don't care if your image gets cropped down into kind of focusing on the center. But in certain cases, you really want the full image to be displayed, and when you want that, you should always use the image element. Okay, the last thing to note is screen settings, and this is very important. Now, let's say you have an element or a section that it's just not scaling across screens well. You really do need it to look a very particular way for one screen and a very particular way for another. What you can actually do is every single element in Shogun has a screens setting styling. So let's say that we really wanted this button right here to show on only tablet and only mobile. We can just uncheck it for widescreen and for desktop. And same with this button that's not going to look so well on mobile. What we can do is we can simply go to screen settings and we can uncheck it for tablet and mobile. And then here you can see we've got this button for these two screen sizes, but when we go to tablet and mobile, that other button is invisible, and we just see the button that looks great for both the screens. Okay, so in review, here is my list of tips. With margins and padding, if you're going over 25 pixels of margins or padding for the left and right hand side, that should start to give you the sense that, okay, you want to be toggling through these different screen views as you're building that section with those settings to make sure that it's looking good. Don't use negative margins or negative padding unless you're a designer, developer, or just have a lot of patience because you're doing something pretty advanced there. Additionally, make sure that if you're using any of these controls down here in the advanced section for any of the elements, these min height and max width controls, keep in mind those are advanced controls. They can impact responsiveness across screens, and they're generally not necessary for many elements, again, unless you're a designer or a developer. As you're building pages, be aware that these previews are here for a reason. It's so while you're building the page, you can be toggling back and forth, seeing how that element or that section looks on different screen sizes before building too much further. And also keep in mind that you can use that screen settings feature to hide certain elements or even certain sections. If you built a section in a containing element like a column or a box, you can hide that section or those elements using the screen settings styling. If you have any questions about mobile responsiveness, you can feel free to reach out to us at support@getshogun.com. Thanks.